Once I turn my mic on, good evening, everybody. How are you? Having a great evening, I hope. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. My name is Travis Shaddox. This is a safe place to learn evidence-based information about turfgrass science. Yes, I have 312 followers, but they're the 312 best. I had this channel for, I don't know, someone go back and look. Well, maybe I can go back and look. I've had this channel for God knows how long. But so over 11 years. 11 years I've had this channel, but I used it back ages ago when my mother, I've always lived as an adult. I've always lived separate from my family. And when I started got married and had kids, there was no way to really share videos back then easily. So I opened up a YouTube channel so I could privately share videos of my children with my mother and my family in another state. I never really used it. And so I had no followers. Of course, there's nothing on my channel. But I opened it up a couple months ago, and whatever time I started doing these things, and we're slowly getting there, guys. You know, you guys showing up and participating is, worth my time. So thank you so much for coming in, Aldo and Jesse and Western Mass, LW50, Super TA329, Gray. A lot of familiar names in the chat tonight. Thank you for participating. It's going to be a fun night. Might be a little long. Okay. You know how long-winded I get sometimes, so I'm going to do my best, but I have several things I got to go over tonight. And we have an author coming on a little later. So first things first is I was running around about to have a heart attack. As you all well know, I'm not a typical person. I stress over times and schedules, and I have to be on time, or I have to be early. Actually, if I'm 5 minutes early, I'm late in my mind. So I'm at the ice rink with my kids. They're practicing the nutcracker on ice. Well, my daughter is. And I'm there, and it's late. We're never there that late at night. And I'm looking at my watch, and it's like, 7:45, and they're still out on the ice. And I'm looking at it, 7:55, they're still out on the ice. 8 o'clock comes around. I'm doing the math in my head going, I can't get home, get these kids in bed, get a shower, get in bed, get cleaned up, say goodnight, all these things, and be on here by 9 o'clock. There's no way. So I'm just like, what am I going to do? I'm asking the coaches or whatever, is my daughter's part finished for tonight, or can we go? Or no, it's not. We got to stay to the end. Da, da, da. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, this is, I'm just like, hey, they're just going to have to wait on YouTube. I mean, there's nothing I can do. And then I picked up my iPad that my son was watching videos on out in the concession stand room or whatever. And it said 7 p.m. I forgot to change the time on my wristwatch. So I hadn't changed the time yet. So it was 7 p.m., not 8 p.m. So I was like, oh my goodness, give me a heart attack because I can't remember to change the time on my watch. Anywho, so that was, my stress moment of the day. I'm going to take you guys to my channel. I want to show you a few things that I've been working on the YouTube channel real quick. And hopefully I can do this. I don't know exactly what screen it's going to show. There we go. It worked. Let me fix this real quick. I want to show you a little bit of what you guys can do and, I don't know, not do and whatever on my channel. So what I've done in the last couple of days or whatever, I'm gonna have to go back and fix this later because I had it set earlier for something else. As I've categorized the videos and the documents that I've been going over, the scientific articles, into different categories that I think might make it easier for you all to find whatever area that you're interested in. So let's say you're interested in today's thatch. You're interested in thatch. Well, to find it through all these videos that I've been making, there's 30 or 40 videos now, might be a little challenging. So what I did was, hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah. So there's a first part here, which is tonight. And then these For You thing, I don't even know what that is. I'm not sure what that is. But then I have like the past streams. So these are on chronological order, what I've done, sort of going backwards in time. But then I've categorized, like if you want to go back and see something, a guest or an author that I've had on, I have a category called guests now. So you can just look underneath that category for any author that I've had on. If you want to look at nitrogen, and that's for some reason you're interested in looking at something on nitrogen, you can just go to that playlist and search through there. So if you click on nitrogen, I don't know what it's going to do. Yeah, so you can see all the various videos that contain a topic about nitrogen. Okay. I'm treading on thin ice here. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. Okay, here we go. Okay. So I have phosphorus, I have potassium, and then I have just turfgrass epistemology as the whole thing. But you can also just go to the top here and go to playlists. And I have other playlists that I don't have on the front page. So the playlists are warm season turf, fallacies. There's only one in that one for now. Clippings is a category, slow release fertilizers, carbohydrates, and so forth. And so as we continue to go through the scientific literature, I'll continue to add either playlists or add the articles and the shows into those playlists. So if you're interested in roots, for example, here's an entire playlist just on roots. I only have 2 videos in there right now, but for cool season fall fertility, we've been going over that. There's 18 videos listed as cool season fall fertility topics. So my idea is to kind of have a library of content that you can easily kind of go and find at least the general topic, instead of having to meander through all the videos. And which video was he talking about with that topic? And I know he talked about phosphorus on some video. Well, at least you can narrow it down a little bit. With phosphorus, I have 6 videos. You can at least click on that and have a better chance of finding whatever it happens to be that you're looking for. Okay, so hopefully that helps. If that's something you've found yourself challenged to go find, various content or whatever. But we're going to be moving into warm season grasses and all sorts of stuff. And so there'll be other playlists come up, but and there'll be other nutrients come up. Like there's no micronutrient category here. And there's at least 10 or 15 papers I have that I'll go over on micronutrients and turf grasses and so forth. So anyway, that's for you guys to hopefully be able to use the content here and find content here a little easier. So look forward to that. Well, it's already done, so please feel free to use it. Tonight, we're going to talk about how to measure thatch. It's a pretty easy document to go through. What's the more effective or most accurate method of measuring thatch, which we're going to find that is something that you can actually do just as accurately as I can do. A lot of times in science, we have all these instruments and really complex ways of measuring, orthophosphate and all these things that you really don't have an ability to do accurately anyway. But in this case, you do. You have just as much ability to measure accurately the thatch as scientists do. So we're going to go through that today. I also have a website that I'm going to show you a few things. I want to show you 2 websites. And I hesitate to do this because it's a little bit out there. I mean, it's a little bit further down the epistemological road than I really wanted to do this early in the channel. But I figure why not? It came up a week or so ago, and coincidentally, another article came up on a different website. I think it was just a couple days ago. And I thought I would at least introduce the concept of the 3 logical absolutes. So I'm not going to go into the whole religion and all these things in terms of beliefs and everything. But in my world, we all have to presuppose something is true. You can just keep going backwards in time, backwards and just do an infinite regress until at some point you realize that you have to presuppose something in order to base your reality on and your beliefs on. You can't, you have to presuppose, we exist, for example, or whatever. That goes into the whole Descartes, solipsism issue. And I'll go into that at some point in the future. But there's 3 logical absolutes that I presuppose to be true. And the one that I'm going to talk about today is there's the 3 logical absolutes are identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. So the non-contradiction is what I'm going to discuss today. In other words, I can't both be and not be simultaneously. I can't I can't be in, well, I don't know. That's silly. I was going to go somewhere else with that, but you get the idea. I can't, you either exist or you do not exist. I have to presuppose that's true. And so in the world of turfgrass, if something is either true or it is not true, under similar conditions, under the same identical conditions, assuming that that's the case. And then what I wanted to show with these articles is one article says this is true, another article says this is true, and they both are not, they're not the same. They're direct logical negations of the other. So I want to show that as an example to express that concept in philosophy. So let's get to the first article I wanted to show, and that is I had this all set up to show, and then I had to move the internet screen. But it's a website called woodlandswater.org, and I don't know what they do and don't do. I guess you can go through here and look. But this is an article posted October 17th of 2023, so just a month ago. And the title of it is "Earthworms: Free Fertilizer for Lawns." Now, if you're in the turfgrass world for any length of time, at some point soon, or if you've been in it for ages, you come across numerous homeowners and, natural, huggy-feely people that love earthworms. They earthworms are great, and it's it's a sign of a healthy soil, right? I mean, earthworms are great for the garden, and good for your lawn, good for your soils, and it's signs of healthy soils and so forth. And I'm not going to argue that at all. I'm just going to say that's their position oftentimes. And we shouldn't apply pesticides, and we shouldn't do all these things because it's horrible for earthworms, horrible for biodiversity. There's even a lady I watched a video on where she says lawns are a biological wasteland. Biologically, it's a desert, which is obviously untrue and it's not accurate. But they'll say things like this. And this article, it's extremely short. I can read it in probably 30 seconds or a minute. I wanted to read through here and see this position that this author has. This is written by a man named Bob Daly. And again, the title is "Earthworms: Free Fertilizer for Lawns." There's a quote here he has at the beginning. "It may be doubted that there are many other animals which have played so important a part in the history of the world as have these lowly organized creatures." I don't know who made that quote. I guess that's Charles Darwin. He has a Charles Darwin quote here. So the article starts, "The best method to judge the health of the soil beneath a lawn is to discover how many earthworms are present." So right from the beginning, he's going to assume that the number of earthworms in the lawn is directly related to the health of the soil, which again, I'm not going to argue that. I'm just going to point out his position. "Earthworms can restore the hard pan of compacted dirt so prevalent in lawns." I have no idea if that's true or not, but he's making a claim there. Their castings are rich in nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, three major elements necessary for plant growth and photosynthesis. Castings also contain magnesium, carbon, calcium, all very important plant nutrients. In just 1 year, 1,000 earthworms and their descendants can transform 1 ton of organic waste into high-yield fertilizer. I have no idea if that's true. Could be true, could not be true. I have no clue. Some important ways earthworms help transform the soil. He's going to list some things here that are apparently beneficial. They tunnel through the soil, aerating it as they go. Now, that's true, but I mean, it's not aerating it in the sense that when we think of aeration in turfgrass, but their channels also allow water to enter and penetrate the soil more quickly. Again, don't assume any of this is true, and don't assume any of it is not true. He's just making statements. Grass roots can also grow better in soil loosened by earthworms, resulting in a deeper root system and healthier lawns. Number 4, earthworms neutralize the soil, either lowering the alkalinity or raising the acidity. Turfgrass likes soil near to the middle between acidic and alkaline. So this claim is saying that they'll both raise the soil pH and lower the soil pH. That's interesting. I don't know if it's true. Earthworms consume organic material like thatch. Now that's a claim we can actually measure, and we know that as far as I'm aware, that's not true, but I could be wrong on that. I'll have to look it up. Worms can compost 4 times quicker than a well-managed composting bin. A large population of earthworms helps control pests. Many soil-borne diseases are reduced significantly when earthworms are present. So there's a whole bunch of claims there that are positive. Okay, so we're going to finish this up. There's just one more little paragraph here. How to attract earthworms, and this is where it kind of goes off the rails. Spread 3/4 of an inch of organic material twice a year onto the lawn. Mid-October and mid-April are the best times. This is the second one. Use a mulching lawnmower and let the clippings drop back onto the lawn. Earthworms will bring much of this material below ground to eat and digest. Number 3. Don't use pesticides or use them in extreme moderation. Choose organic pesticides if necessary. Pesticides are indiscriminate and kill earthworms and other beneficial organisms. Go to the last one. I'm going to come back then. Don't use man-made chemical fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers contain sulfuric and hydrochloric acids, which are deadly to earthworms. Few worms exist in soils treated with chemicals. Use organic fertilizers instead. And then he says there is no need to add earthworms to your lawn. Earthworms are in the area. They'll be attracted. Okay. So he's made numerous claims and so forth. I have no reason to believe any of it's true. He's just making a bunch of claims. He hasn't provided any sort of evidence. And as we talked about just a day or two ago, I don't need to provide any evidence to refute it. He hasn't provided any evidence to support it. So I'm not convinced it's true, and I'm not convinced it's not true. I don't know. I'd have to go look it up. But his claims on the last are about pesticides. Don't use pesticides or use them in extreme moderation. Choose organic pesticides. Pesticides are indiscriminate and kill earthworms and other organisms. Now, if you're in turf grass, particularly if you're in sport turf or if you're in golf or sod, lawn care is a little different because they have a little bit higher cut grass and it's a little less of an issue. But you know, if you're in those tight cut grasses of 500 or below, that earthworms in some instances can be devastating to the surface playability. Because the castings are a nuisance for ball roll, for footing, for just the looks, for mowing. It's awful. So in turf grass, we are often trying to find ways, safe ways, to control the population of earthworms because it's so great in many cases, even when we're applying herbicides, for example, or even insecticides, for example. We're applying pesticides to control pests in some cases. And even in those cases, earthworms will still thrive. So the turf grass system in many locations is really a garden made to grow earthworms, even in the presence of pesticides. We're all very familiar with this, okay? When he says don't use man-made chemical fertilizers, basically he's saying synthetic fertilizers, and he's arguing that synthetic fertilizers are deadly. Hydrochloric acids and sulfuric acids are deadly to earthworms. Now, again, I'd have to go look it up to find evidence. I don't need to find evidence. All I can tell you is there's no reason to believe it. But his position is this is true. Okay. Fertilizers kill earthworms, pesticides kill earthworms. Let's just assume, for the sake of discussion tonight, that all of that is true. Okay. Let's go to another article. Now, if you're on Twitter at all, you've probably come across the single-handedly most viewed turf video in the history of turf videos. Came out about a month ago from an assistant superintendent over in Arizona. Her video on Twitter has been viewed 33 million times. I think her name is let me look it up. I didn't have Twitter pulled up to look at it. I can't. Where is it at? It's EM. Oh, there it was. I had it. EM Casey. M Casey. So it's at EM Casey with a C, turf. And I looked at it. So it's still at 33 million. Okay. So that video was viewed so many times, CNN picked it up. So CNN, I'm going to fix this real quick because I had it fixed earlier. No, I moved everything. CNN picked up Miss, I guess her name's Miss Casey. I don't know what her real name is. I'm going to make this a little bit easier to read for you guys. Picked it up, and they have a article on it. It says an Arizona golf course is under attack from a squadron of pig-like creatures. Remember, we're talking about earthworms, and this gentleman's saying fertilizers and chemicals kill earthworms, and don't use chemicals and don't use, synthetic fertilizers and all these things because it's awful for earthworms. And that was specifically to your yard, to turf grass is what he was saying. Well, in Arizona, and I've seen this in Florida, I don't know how many times, where turf gets ripped up, okay, by varmints. That's an Oklahoma way of saying an animal. Okay, so here you can see a photo. For those listening, I'm showing a photo of a fairway of at the Arizona Sunshine, 7 Canyons in the morning. Okay, so I guess it's 7 Canyons Country Club. I thought they had it listed here real quick early on, but I don't see it. Anyway, showing a fairway, beautiful golf course, some mountains in the background, nice sky, and turf is just ripped up out of this fairway. Now, on her video on Twitter, she shows acres and acres and acres in the rough, in the fairway, on tees, everywhere. Turf is just tore up bad. Okay, so let's read through this and see what's going on. Growling, crackling teeth, the rumble of hooves. As night falls on one of the United States' most scenic golf clubs, sinister noises reverberate off the Red Rock Canyon walls. And when the Arizona sunshine breaks over 7 canyons in the morning, destruction is revealed. Sprawling mounds of ravaged turf blot the 7,000-yard course like open wounds, soil and grass strewn in all directions across otherwise pristine fairways. The perpetrators, Javelina, a pig-like creature with raking canine teeth whose capacity for chaos is in the town of Sedona, has seen them become a viral sensation. When you come upon them and see them, it's like the Tasmanian devil, 7 Canyons General Manager Dave Bisbee told CNN. There's turf flying all over the place. There's grunting. There's fighting. For rather small creatures, they do a lot of damage. They can rototill some turf with those teeth. It is really disturbing when you see it. Okay. So, and they have a picture here of one of these. It's just like a little hog is what it looks like. I don't know if it's technically a hog, but it looks like a little hog. I'm going to skip through some of this. With a white collar ring, gray-black fur, Javelina typically grow 3 to 4 feet long and 19 inches tall, weighing in anywhere between 40 and 60 pounds with a 7.5-year average lifespan, according to the Arizona State Department of Game and Fish. Common to the desert areas, yet adaptable to a range of habitats, they have predominantly herbivorous diet of cacti, bulbs, and other plants, but will also eat garbage, insects, and fatefully, for 7 Canyon staff, worms. Okay. So, located at the base of Vermilion Cliffs and encircled by the Coconino National Forest, the private course, with its nutrient-rich fairways and bountiful water hazards, presents an irresistible all-you-can-eat and drink buffet for a species looking to fatten up for the winter. Earthworms, wriggling in the top few inches of grass, are a particular delicacy for the Javelina, which are not strictly nocturnal, but are most active at dark. Consequently, 25 to 30 strong herds, also known as squadrons, churn up expanses of turf in search of a midnight snack. Okay, so they go on through here. They show the course. An aerial photo of the course without the damage, and they talk about the various things about the Javelina and so forth. But basically, and they talk about the cost, several $100,000 in damage. There's a photo of one fairway. Looks like it's a fairway here. Real, huge damage, lots and lots of damage to this turf grass, which is unfortunate. I mean, I get that. It's not going to be easy to replace that. It's probably going to have to be resodded. They're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in repair and labor and all these things. Okay, but that's not what I wanted. The point was, her name is Emily Casey. Okay, the lady who posted the video her name is Emily Casey. Apologize to her if she's listening to this. That I misspoke about your name. So that's all I want to talk about in terms of that particular article. There's a golf course in Arizona that's getting devastated and destroyed from a hog that's digging up turf grass to eat the earthworms. So you've created an environment that is incredibly fertile for biodiversity. Turf grass systems, the soil turf grass system is extremely diverse. And you have another person on the other spectrum saying, don't apply chemicals, don't apply synthetic fertilizers, it's going to kill earthworms. Now, you can't have both under the same setting. You can't have, it comes back to the logical absolute, where it's a non-contradiction. You can't have one person saying it's going to kill all the earthworms and another situation saying this hog's tearing up all this grass because he's eating all the earthworms on my golf course. And I'm assuming they're applying fertilizer under BMPs and they're following the proper best management practices, which includes IPM and some pesticide usage and so forth like that. I'm assuming all that's the case. May not be true, but I'm assuming they're applying some fertilizer and they're applying some pesticides. And there's earthworms everywhere. So you have one person saying yes and one person saying not yes, right? And I mean, Emily Casey's not saying that, but they're showing examples where, clearly earthworms exist in settings where there's plenty of turf and there's plenty of nutrients and plenty of pesticides, and more than likely being applied under BMP regular boundaries. Okay, so how do we approach this? I mean, how do you determine who's right and who's wrong? I'm assuming that what she's showing is accurate. Could not be. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm assuming that they're that javelina is eating earthworms. They could. I don't know. I'm not a javelina expert. I have no idea. I'd have to go look it up. I'm inclined to believe them. I'm looking at photographs. I'm looking at, experts saying that that's what happens, but I don't know that for sure. And then I have another person saying, well, don't apply all these chemicals because it's going to kill all the earthworms. I don't know that for sure. Okay, so I'm in a situation where you have two people saying things that can't both simultaneously be true. And this is what epistemology is about. How do we know what we know? And how we find these answers is to go explore the literature, go and look at Google Scholar, look at turfgrass information file. You have to do a little background look, but we know they both can't be true. And when you go and you look in the literature, this turfgrass literature or you just go to turfgrass information file and type in earthworms, you're going to have a whole bunch of articles pop up. And normally they're articles by entomologists trying to figure out how to have a safe way to control them because their populations are so high on turfgrass. Okay, under conditions of, normal turf management, the populations are usually quite high. And they're trying to figure out, well, what is a product that we can use or management practices that we can employ or follow that would minimize the amount of earthworms, because there's so many, they're actually a nuisance or a hazard sometimes. So that's how I'd find the evidence. That's how I would find out who's accurate, who's correct here. Okay. So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there as a means to explore, maybe a little bit further down the road, we'll go into a little bit more depth of those, deep philosophical positions on epistemology. We have three things that I absolutely must presuppose to be true. These are the only three things I presuppose to be true are identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. And the non-contradiction is what I just discussed today. You can't have and not have simultaneously. You can't be and not be simultaneously. And so anyway, I wanted to show that. Good job to Emily to put that video online. Great. I'm glad she shows. A lot of times we don't like to show, the course getting messed up. We don't want to show, but she did, and it got out, and we have more exposure on what golf is and what we go through, and the turfgrass management practices, and there's a lot of hardworking people doing a good job. They're gonna have to come in and fix this up, and there's reasons why we develop BMPs, and it's important that we do our best to get the information out there of what we do in the golf courses and the sort of the lives that they live in the golf course world. And so thank you, Emily, for putting that out. And I'm glad you got so many views on that. I hope you got a lot of people following you now on Twitter. So, where is, there's a lot of chat here. I may have to go back through it. But anyway, I appreciate you guys chatting. So now let's get into the article, the Thatch article let's see, where is it at? Now, I said I have an author coming on. Now, well, let's just get into it. So we're going to be going over Thatch for the next month or whatever. And there's the articles that I'm going to be going over. Well, they'll look at Thatch, various management practices and chemicals and these various things about how to manage thatch and to minimize thatch buildup and hasten its decay. And the various variables that influence the growth of thatch and the development of thatch. And because of that, we have to figure out a way to measure it. There's various ways we can measure it. One way we can measure it is to just simply directly measure the depth of the thatch, the thickness, using a ruler. Okay. Another way we can measure it is to weigh it, dry it, and then weigh it and measure its mass. A third way we can measure it is through compression. We can compress the surface of the turf without removing a core. And from compression, we can attempt to measure the depth or the change in thatch over time. And then you can simply do a straight organic matter percentage on the thatch. You can just digest the whole thing and, measure organic matter that way. I got a pet in my backyard apparently today and making some noise. I may have to, let me know if it gets a little bit too much. I'll go shut the window. So there's at least 4 unique ways of measuring thatch. But there are differences between those 4 in terms of their precision, but also their accuracy. And so I wanted to show this article as a means to kind of set the stage as we go through future articles. So hey, they measured thatch this way, and we already know that way is the most accurate or the most reliable method. If they measured thatch a different way, let's say they measured thatch through compression, which is extremely common in the 70s and the 80s. They measured thatch through compression, then the results, in my opinion, are a little bit questionable. And I'm going to show you exactly why I have that position on this particular article. So without further ado, let's get the author in here, which is me. So I guess 4 or 5 years ago, Dr. Unruh and myself decided to put together this article. He was doing an in-depth research project on Zoysiagrass thatch management, which unfortunately, sorry, Brian, we haven't published yet because it's so involved. I was just like, oh my God, that's a lot of work. And as you know, thatch is not my bread and butter. It's not exactly, I don't get up thinking about thatch in the morning. Okay. So we didn't publish that component yet, but during that study, they were doing top dressing and verticutting and all these things. During that study, they were measuring thatch 4 different ways as a means to get the best, most accurate, measurement of how these various treatments affected the thatch development. And so I talked to Brian. I was like, I think we can just get out a paper on that alone. Which one of these methods should we be using, on zoysiagrass? And so we put out this paper. It's the title of the paper is called Correlating Methods of Measuring Zoysiagrass Thatch. Now, I have not highlighted anything in here as far as I know, but I wrote it, so I should be able to make my way through here without too much problem, I hope. I haven't read this particular paper in a little while, but I'll read through just some basic introduction so you kind of have an idea of the methods that have historically been used. So here we go. This paper was published in Crop Science. And by the way, I don't know if he's in here tonight. I won't call him out because I don't want to embarrass him if he doesn't want to. But I've been getting a few emails here and there. I really appreciate emails. I tend to do better with emails than I'm not real good about putting stuff online. I don't really feel comfortable doing that a whole lot. But if you send me an email and have a question, I'm more likely to kind of engage with you on emails. And one of my normal audience members who's around, he might be here today, asked me about the various journals just today, I think it was. And I mentioned I'm going to go through the journals, and I will go through the journals. I'm going to rank the journals from my perspective as to which ones are more competent and you can be confident with the content than others. But Crop Science is almost at the very top of that list. So when I say Crop Science, the reason I point this out is because I want you all to know as the audience that the information in here has gone through a robust review and criticism process before it's published. Okay, so it's not that the information is guaranteed to be 100% accurate, but your confidence in it should be pretty strong if it's in Crop Science, okay, as opposed to other journals, which I'm going to go into. But thank you for sending me that email. It'll encourage me to go ahead and move that episode up a little bit more in my schedule to go ahead and so you all know what I'm talking about when it comes to the differences in journals and the qualities of the information and so forth. Okay. Let me get my little pen out here. Okay, so I'm right up here. Thatch is the intermingled organic layer of dead and living shoots, stems, and roots of grasses that develop between the turf canopy and the soil surface. So it's dead and living, sort of intermingled dead and living shoots, stems, and roots. Although naturally occurring, excessive thatch may result in reductions in turf quality and playability. Therefore, thatch management is a common and in many cases necessary practice to ensure acceptable turfgrass quality and performance. Okay, so numerous methods are used to measure thatch, including weight loss on ignition. Let me explain that real quick. So weight loss on ignition is you take you dry out a sample and you take a known mass of tissue and you put it in a a furnace that it's so hot, it combusts all the material on it and turns it into a gas, essentially. And the only thing left behind is a very, very small amount of ash. Okay, so you weigh it before it goes in. You put it into a furnace. I can't remember the temperature. I think it's 500 degrees Celsius. But I can't. I haven't done those procedures in ages. And you combust it, and then whatever got turned into gas was organic, and anything that's remaining as ash was a mineral and didn't gas off. So that's the way you can measure basically total organic matter, weight loss on ignition for organic matter. Rulers for depth, so you can just simply take a ruler or a caliper, measure the depth of the thatch, the thickness. Balances for weight, so you just dry it. You take a sample, you separate out the thatch, remove the roots, remove the clippings, and you have the thatch, and you dry it off and you weigh it. Or there's something called a thatch meter for compression, and I'm going to show you a photo of what that is. But basically, it's an instrument that you put on the thatch that compresses the thatch down to a certain depth, and based upon the depth that the plunger or the weight compresses the turf, you can relate that to the thickness of the thatch. Well, supposedly you can do that. We're going to find out in this paper that that's not completely accurate. So those are the 4 ways. Okay. And then what I do is I go through here the various methods, and I show the past literature that have used those methods and how they used it and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to go into that. I don't think it's pertinent to what we're going to talk about today. I talk about weight loss on ignition, talk about depth by rulers and all those various authors that have done that, or many of them. But Volk, who was a professor at the University of Florida, published a paper in 1972. He first designed and compared the thatch meter to thatch depth and weight of Bermuda grass greens. So he, in 1972, Dr. Volk at University of Florida created a thatch meter, and it was then known as the Volk thatch meter. That he compared it to the thatch depth and weight of Bermuda grass. He determined that the correlation between the thatch meter and the depth and weight were significant at the 0.001 level. So what that means is there's a 99.9% chance that the correlation was there, but no correlation coefficients were reported. So I don't know, even though the correlation was significant, meaning that there's a 99.9% chance that there is a correlation, I don't know what the correlation was because he didn't report it. In other words, the correlation could have been 5%, which would have been useless to us, or it could have been 95%, which would have been great, like a R squared of 0.95 would have been fantastic. I don't know, he didn't report it. Additionally, after calculating the ratios of compression between areas of high and low thatch, Volk 72 noted that the sensitivity of the instrument was reduced when measuring thatch greater than 600 grams per square centimeter. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all and bore you to tears with all the other stuff, but basically the thatch meter was used regularly in Florida, maybe other places as well. And the reason why it was used, let me just go down here and show it to you. Here's the thatch meter right here. The reason why this was used is because it's non-destructive and it's fast. So if you're going to do a weight loss on ignition, you have to take a sample and you have to burn it. If you're going to do the depth by ruler, you have to take a sample and you have to measure it. What was the other one? weight loss ignition depth by ruler. And what was the other ones I did? I can't remember. Oh, weigh it. So if you're going to weigh it, you got to take a sample, you got to dry it, you got to separate it out, and you got to weigh it. All that's very time consuming. Thatch work. I don't know what I dislike more, thatch work or root work, because it's just so time consuming. It's so labor intensive. It just, takes a lot of time. Well, this meter comes along in 1972, and what you do is you put this wooden device on the turf, and I have this tilted back slightly in this photograph. And the reason is I wanted to show in the photograph, down here below the base is a little plunger right here. Okay, guys, can you see that down here? There's a little plunger, and this weight here, this lead weight, there's a hole in this wooden base, and that plunger goes through that wooden hole, or through the hole of the wooden base, and creates a known force on the turf. And I forget what it is. I think it's the weight of a 200-pound man. They had the size of a golf ball and the weight of a 200-pound man. They had some sort of reason why they chose the weight. I can't remember the reason, but when the plunger goes down, it pulls on this little pulley system, and this rod coming up through here goes to a little wooden scale looking thing, and on this are numbers on this little curved wooden frame here. This little pin, there's this metal rod goes up through here, and there's a little metal pin right here, and it tells you, it's a gauge. It tells you how far the plunger went into the turf. Okay, that's what the Volk Thatch meter is, and he came up with the second one. I think this is actually the second one. But the reason why it became so popular, or it maybe was then, I don't know, but the reason is because it's fast. You don't have to rely upon a lot of time and labor and money to pay someone to sit there and measure all this thatch. Okay. So it makes sense why it was but they were interested in using it. Okay. But we're going to find out, spoiler alert, that it's not reliable. Okay. So it's just not a reliable method of measuring thatch. So the reason I'm saying that is when we're going to go back and read through those papers, we're going to go through and read them. I don't have a problem reading the papers and explaining them or whatever, but you have to read it with the understanding that there's a tremendous amount of variation. And I'm going to show you in this paper exactly the magnitude of variation from this instrument compared to other methods. So you can have a feeling of the context, to know, that is significant or it's not significant. Okay. I'm not going to go through the whole materials and methods because it just describes all the project's methods, and we don't even really show that here. All I'm going to show was the methods of measuring thatch. Okay. That was the result. This is the result. So I accidentally skipped through the materials and methods. But let me just read through where it was. So this was conducted from June 2013 through October 2015. Okay. So it was 3 years and so in J, on warm season grasses, this is zoysia, it doesn't really start growing there till about May, June, and then it shuts down in October, November. So you're talking about a whole 2013, all of 2014, and all of 2015. So 3 full years of growing seasons that his technicians sat up there and measured all this thatch. It was a lot of work up in J. So J, if you don't know where J is near Pensacola, Florida. That's the easiest way to know, to kind of get an idea where it is. So it's on the Gulf Coast and the farthest northwest corner of Florida as you can possibly get, probably, and still be in Florida. Okay, so we had nitrogen fertility treatments, top dressing treatments, verticutting treatments. I'm not going to show any of that other than just the NOVA table. I'm going to explain it real quickly on the NOVA table. But the secondary objective of this study was to compare the standard thatch measurement techniques to modify the techniques designed to measure thatch more rapidly. Okay, so that secondary objective is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk briefly about the results from the first objective, but it won't take 5 minutes. Now, we did this on 5 different zoysia grasses. Let me look. So we did Zoysia japonica. We did, it was formerly known as Ultimate Flora. That was one cultivar. We did Empire zoysia. We did Jammer zoysia. So we did 3 Japonica cultivars, and then we did some Matrella cultivars. So the Matrella cultivars, for those who may not be familiar with that, are more like putting green height zoysia grasses. So the Japonicas are more turf grasses that you might find in your lawn. You might find on fairways or tees. And the Matrellas you'd find on greens. Okay. And the Matrella cultivars were Toccoa Green and Xeon. All right. So we had 2 Matrellas and 3 Japonicas. And we go through all this other stuff, all the various things, and all the treatments and the split plots and all the mess. I don't want to bore you guys to death with all that junk. But they were mowed so the 4 methods of measurements were compression using the thatch meter, organic matter percentage determined by the weight loss on ignition, the depth measured using a ruler, and mass measured using a balance. So it had 4 ways of measuring the thatch. The thatch meter was custom built to match the original thatch meter designed by Volk 1972, with the following exception: the shaft and the compression weight was fitted with a 2 centimeter extension to use the thatch meter on higher cut turf grass. So Volk did it on putting greens. We're doing it on putting greens and on higher cut turf, being the Japonicas. So we just use a little bit longer plunger shaft, whatever you want to call it. What was it? The shaft. So the shaft going through the bottom of this was just a little longer, is the only difference. Other than that, it's identical to Thatch's design. To Volk's design. Okay. Now, we measured the mass using a scale. We measured the compression using the thatch meter. We measured the weight loss on ignition using an oven. Then we measured, I want to show you guys this because we measured the thickness within 6 hours of core extraction. The ruler thatch measurements were made using a digital OEM vernier caliper, OEM tools, on 2 random cores from each subplot. So this calipers, you can go to Granger and buy these little calipers. It looks, you probably all very, very familiar with them. So it's a caliper that you just put over the thatch and you turn it and it comes down, and as they there's 2 little metal teeth, and you just don't compress it. You just move one down until you know that it's touching the top and the bottom, and then it has the depth there on a little gauge, and that's the depth. So very simple. You could use a ruler too. It's just the caliper's a little bit quicker, and it's a little bit more accurate than just looking at a ruler and actually kind of, okay, that's 2.6 centimeters. You can just use a caliper and do it quicker. I wanted to make sure that's clear, because this is what's going to end up being the method that is recommended. So just get a caliper. Okay, so I'm going to show this real quick. I'm not going to go into this. This looks in a great depth, but what I'm showing for those listening is I'm showing type 3 tests of fixed effects. So what this is the analysis of variance, but it's using Glimmics. I know that's boring to everybody, but for the grad students and the professors who might be listening, they know what I'm talking about. All it is the most current sort of ANOVA analysis of variance. That's all you need to know. Here's all the cultivars. On the left, we have Empire Jammer, BA 189, and then Toccoa Green and Xeon down at the bottom. And what you have is the fixed effects are verticutting, top dressing, fertilizing, okay? And then you have all the interactions, okay, and the 3-way interactions, right? I don't want to bore you. Don't turn it off yet, okay? I'm just going to show you a couple things. When the columns are organic matter, depth, mass, and compression, okay? The depth, the only thing that affected the thickness of the thatch when you're measuring it using the caliper, remember, we're verticutting, we're top dressing, we're fertilizing. We have all the interactions of those 3. None of it influenced the thickness of the thatch on any of the Japonicas. But on the Matrellas, the Toccoa Green and the Xeon, the only thing that affected it was the top dressing on the Toccoa Green and the top dressing on the Xeon. So top dressing had an influence on the thickness of the thatch for those 2 Zoysiagrass cultivars, being Matrella, the Matrella species, I guess, or however you say it, the Matrella zoysias. But the Japonicas had no influence. Nothing affected it when you measured it using a caliper. Okay, verticutting didn't help, top dressing didn't help, and the fertility didn't help. Usually fertility will actually increase it, but fertility in this case did not increase it, didn't influence it. Okay. Now, when you look at the other ones, when you measured it using the organic matter being the weight loss on ignition, you're going to see differences. You're going to see on the Empire, you saw top dressing and fertilization have an influence. On the Jammer, you saw top dressing have an influence. On the BA 189, it had an influence. There was interaction between verticutting and fertility on BA 189 on using organic matter weight loss on ignition. So you're seeing a lot of differences that did not exist when you measured it using the ruler, when you used weight loss on ignition. Let's go to mass, where you just do it on a scale. You're going to see differences. You're going to see these differences still exist, okay? You're going to see all these differences, right? Similar to the organic matter by weight loss on ignition, you're going to see differences if you measure it using mass. When you measure it using the compression or the Volk Thatch meter, there's fewer differences, but you still see differences beyond that of the depth by ruler. Okay, so you might look at this and go, well, the depth by ruler probably is not good. I mean, you don't want to use the depth by ruler because you're only showing two areas where there's differences, right? You're showing all these differences from all these other methods of measuring it. Oh, okay. Okay, Eric. Eric, I think it was you. Eric says, "Hey, I actually do appreciate the stats. It does help to describe the confidence of the results." I think it was you that mentioned something about the robot mowers too. You must be in the world of stats or science or something. I don't know. May have to chit chat with you more about it. But yeah, these are all the stats. If you're a stats nerd like myself, then this is gonna turn you on, I guess. But look at the F values. For those, if you're interested in thatch, I mean, you're talking about huge F values, 637, 88. I mean, these are highly, highly significant responses. Okay. But it looks like you don't want to use the caliper if you just look at this. You go, well, I should probably be doing weight loss on ignition because I'm showing differences when fertilizer happens on Empire. I'm showing it has an impact on the thatch when I fertilize it on Empire. If I use weight loss on ignition, I should use a scale because it's showing a difference as well, right? But we can't just look at this and assume that. And I'm going to show you why in a minute. Actually, the very next thing I'm going to show you why right now. Okay. So those are the stats. And this is the study that we didn't really publish, because what's going to happen is at some point in the future, I'm probably going to publish this, but all I'm going to show is just this. I'm not going to publish all the other ones. I'm just going to publish the depth by caliper. I'm not going to show all this other stuff because all this other stuff isn't valid. And I'm going to show you why. Even though there's a different showing, I shouldn't say it's not valid. It's just not as accurate, and I'm going to show you why. I'm just going to use the depth, and all I'm going to show is that nothing happened on Empire, Jammer, BA 189. The only thing that happened was on Toto, Green, and Xeon, and the only thing that helped it was top dressing. So maybe that's why we didn't publish it. I don't remember now. It's been so many years, but anyway, let's get to it. Now, what I did was I took all the data for all the cultivars of Zoysiagrass, and I put on these charts of those listening. I'm going to do my best to describe this, but it's going to be a little challenging because this is the meat and potatoes of this paper. Is I put on here really what is kind of the descriptive statistics, the box and whisker plots from the various months that thatch was sampled. Okay, so on the x-axis, you're going to see June 2013, August 2013, November 2013, April 14, July 14, October 14, April 15, July 15, October 15. So these are all the months that we sampled the thatch. And on the bottom, that's on the x-axis of all the graphs. On the y-axis, you have the different methods of measuring it. So on the top, we have organic matter by weight loss on ignition right here. Then we have the depth by ruler. We have the mass by weighing, and then we have the compression by the Volk Thatch meter. Okay. And what you're going to see here, when you see on really any grass, if you're not managing it, or you're not any grass that develops thatch, you should see thatch go up, right? And you should see it slowly go up. Let's just start with the ruler, with the caliper. And that's what you see here with the caliper. You're going to see here that these boxes are very tight. So let me briefly explain what these boxes mean. These bars here on a box and whisker indicate the variation of the maximum and minimum numbers, right? So or I think it's 95% confidence intervals or whatever. So this gives an idea of how spread out the data are. And then the first line, I should look this up. The first line is the first standard deviation, and the middle line is the mean, and then or the mean or the median, I can't remember. And then the bottom line is the bottom standard deviation on the low end. From my memory, I'm not a stats perfectionist. Someone can correct me in the chat, but this gives you an idea of how variable the data were, and it gives you an idea of the change over time. Okay, so if the thatch wasn't really changing much, which is what we found in everything except the two Matrellas, the box almost the first one is a Zoysia japonica cultivar Empire. So this one we're looking at is Empire. We showed that the thatch wasn't changing. It wasn't influenced by the treatments, and so you see it going up. You see this slowly going up because none of the treatments were having an impact on thatch. And you see the variation of the data within each data collection point is relatively tight compared to the other measurement methods. Okay, so for example, let's say November 2013. This box here is really tight. Okay, that means that data is super close together. Whereas in November 2013, when you measured it using weight loss on ignition, the box is actually still pretty tight, but it's wider. And the error bars are a little bit wider. When you go to the mass using the weight, you see the error bars are even more pronounced. Now down here with the compression with the Volt Thatch meter, it is really tight. But look what happens over time is that it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes down again, then it goes up. The variation from 1 month to the next is tremendous. Even though within a month it's tight, there is no clear movement in the thatch over time, which we know doesn't occur. Okay? Especially with the Japonica, the Empire. We know it was going up. We know there was no impact on the thatch from the treatments. Does that make sense? So we should see this. We should see the thatch slowly going up. And because we see it going up in the caliper with the ruler, and we see the tightness of the data compared to the other measurement methods, this is going to be the method on Empire that we would recommend. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Because look at here's an extreme example. Here's the variation. It goes all the way from 100 down to probably 20 in terms of the variation in July of 2015 using the scale. Whereas using the depth by caliper, by ruler, it's much tighter. That probably would have been a better example. And we see movement in the data, right? We see a trend that you would expect to see, as opposed to just like random number generators where it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, going down, going up, down, down. I mean, there's no clear trend. When we go to the other cultivars, Japonica, then we're looking at Jammer, and then we're looking at 489 here on the same page here. You're going to see the same thing. You're going to see the thatch, as you would expect. Whenever we've shown the treatments didn't have an impact, you would expect it to go up, and they slowly go up using the depth, the ruler, and you see the tightness of the data relative to the organic matter by weight loss on ignition. You see tremendous amount of variation, huge variation in BA 189, variation like crazy, and there's no clear trends of going up or down. It's going up and going down and going up and going down, and variation all over creation. Okay, similar, but less magnitude when you measure it with a scale. And then again, with the thatch meter, you see really tight data, but you don't see a trend really. It's just sort of like a random number generator. You see it up, you see it down, you see it up, you see it down, all over the place. Okay. Am I losing you guys? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm trying to keep this simple, and I that's one of my goals for the channel. And I just realized maybe I went too far down the stats road. Oh, no. Eric says it gives a good visual representation of the quartiles. Yeah, quartiles in a relationship to the mean. Perfect. Okay, so it's making some sense. Okay. Now, when we go to the Matrellas, similar trend, but even worse for the other measurement methods. So depth by ruler, you see some fairly tight numbers relative to the other measurement methods. And it's not going up or down too much, but you can see a little bit of upward trend here. Not going up and down too much. It's kind of flat, not doing too much. But here, the other ones are tremendous variation, a ridiculous amount of variation relative to the measurement by ruler. I mean, look at this. This goes off the scale here on October 5th, 2015 using weight loss on ignition. I mean, it's just a lot of variation. Look at the weight loss. Look at them on mass. Look at this variation here on mass on April 2014. It's just all over the place. And then when you go to the compression, the Volk Thatch meter, you see variation, but you don't see what you would expect to see whenever we know that the ANOVA shows there's very little differences in the treatments, or very little influence on the treatments, I should say. Okay. So in conclusion, this study was unable to provide sufficient evidence supporting the correlation of Zoysiagrass thatch measured using the thatch meter with thatch measured using weight loss on ignition, a ruler, or a balance. The R-squared values and lack of variability in the thatch meter compression indicate the instrument lacks the sensitivity to accurately measure Zoysiagrass thatch. So this was really the last paper I thought I would ever actually go through was this paper. And it happens to be, I think, the first paper of mine that I've covered. But I wanted to provide that as a means to set the stage for the next month when we're talking about Zoysiagrass thatch measurements. It's not that you can't use weight loss on ignition. It's not that you can't use a scale or you can't use the thatch meter. It's just that when you do, or when it's shown in the literature that that's what the method was that was used, you have to be a little careful. You have to be a little skeptical. Okay, well, the variation was quite high. Okay, even if you do show a difference, using it, measuring the depth by ruler or by caliper tends to be the most consistent and accurate and precise method. So keep that in mind as we go through the next month or so. And as importantly as that is that means that you, as a lawn care operator or golf superintendent or sport turf manager, saw producer, whatever, you can achieve the same level of precision and accuracy in the same exact method as we do as scientists. We're not, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a scale and a muffle furnace and all these things. You can just get up on probably go on Amazon and buy a caliper that can measure, say, from anywhere from down to as low as maybe a quarter to a half an inch to as high as maybe 2 inches. Maybe is probably the most thatch I've ever seen is 2 to 2.5 inches probably. So if you can get a caliper that'll measure that variation or that depth or that thickness, you can achieve the same exact numbers and have a great deal of confidence that whatever you're measuring is very close to what we're measuring. This is not the case in soil testing. And the reason I say is because oftentimes you get these little color strips. I'm going to measure pH, and I'm going to use these color strips to get an idea what the pH is. These are wildly inaccurate. Okay. But that happens to be the most common method that just the average Joe can use, because you're not going to go spend $2,500 on a pH meter and a scale and all drying everything down and doing it. You're not going to do that. You have beakers and pipetters and everything. You're not going to do that. It's not worth your time. There may be other pH meters you can do a little bit quicker, but generally they use strips, and those are not that accurate. Okay. But in this case, the most accurate method is one that you can go do yourself. You can go get a caliper, and there's really no reason to have any less confidence in you doing it than there is in me doing it if you're using that instrument. Okay. With that being said, I will read through the chat. If you have any last minute questions or comments you want me to read through, put them in there now. Hopefully I didn't lose you too much on the data there, but I wanted to do that and make sure we're all talking apples to apples as we move forward here. Yeah, I keep hearing about this Evie person. I'm not sure who he or her is. I don't know that person, but I keep. Oh, when you need him. Okay, so it must be a man. It must be a stats person. I don't know. I've heard that before in another stream I had. I guess someone is a stats person, which I highly encourage. I'm not a stats person. I have a statistician on speed dial, literally, and because when I run into something. One of the best things I've done, and hopefully maybe you've done this too, is find people who are really good at what you're not good at. I don't want to be in a room full of turf fertility specialists who know what I know. There's a lot I don't know. I want to be in a room with people that can fulfill that void I have. So I can do stats as good as the statistician tells me how to do it. Because whenever someone challenges me in a review on statistics, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to send it right to my statistician and say, can you help me with this? And if I didn't have him included in the beginning, he's going to go, you screwed this up. What'd you do? So include and build a team of people who fulfill your shortcomings. I've used that to great success. And maybe I'm sure you all do the same thing, but I'm not a stats person. So if you are a stats person, come on in and you can show me a thing or two for sure. So I don't see anything else in here. Precise measurements. Looks like this is something that you enjoyed, Eric. So hopefully other people can pull something from it. We're going to lean on this paper a little bit as I move forward in the next couple of weeks. Kind of come back to this and make sure you understand that that when they're talking depth, that's a pretty sound, solid way of doing it, and most of them do. Okay, most of the Thatch measurements do it through thickness. Okay. Tomorrow I'll be on at 10 a.m. about 12 hours from now. We have a real guest author coming in next week. Today's guest author was me, but it took me 35 or 40 papers to get to one of my papers. But next Tuesday is going to be a little different. We're going to have it in the afternoon because the author could only come on. I think it was at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Eastern time. But look forward to another author next week. And until then, guys, I'm going to leave you guys today with a little nice little soft music from a little unknown 3-man band from Texas. Until then, until tomorrow, be kind. See you then.